Happy Kung Fu Christmas! Today, on Japan Life Live, I would like to do a bit of an introduction video along with the first stage of the greatest game in the past couple years, Sifu. This is a basic beat 'em up with the twist that it's harder than anything you've ever tried. You cannot walk up and just start mercilessly punching everybody and win. There is a technique to be learned. You have to become a digital kung fu master of sorts. The idea of dodging, parrying, and countering is everything here. So if it sounds good to you or this gameplay footage looks fun, 100% check it out because I cannot recommend this game highly enough. It is probably the one game I have more time in than anything in the past few years. All that aside, I would like to do an introduction video. I haven't really talked about why I do this channel or what really led me to this, so, you know, and the name, which doesn't make as much sense as I was hoping. So let's get into this. I moved to Japan in 2009, 14 years ago. I was in a place in my life where I didn't quite know what the next step of my life was going to be. As someone who's always loved anime, especially 90s stuff, I loved the idea of coming to Japan. I had done that for a vacation on a number of times and realized that this is the place I wanted to be more than anywhere else. Some foreigners grow jaded quickly or aren't really suited for the environment, I should say. I really mesh well with society here. I don't have any complaints. I know it seems a little bit odd. Most people really love to get negative on this country, but I don't really see anything that I don't like. There are, of course, complaints that are, you know, valid. Trying to find a job that is not an English teacher is difficult, but possible. They prize things like education and which school you went to a lot more than any kind of experience or recommendation. So things like that can get in the way of a career path that you may have set in a foreign country previous to coming here. But all that aside, the day-to-day life is amazing. I love the fact that I can walk to the gym at 2 in the morning if I feel the need to, completely safe. There's really not a lot of violent crime to be mentioned. It does happen, but definitely not in my tiny mountain town. Things have been wildly in my favor, so I don't really ever see a reason I wouldn't want to be here. I'm happy with my choice, and I don't see any future where I will leave this country or become bored with the life that I've chosen. So, all that love for Japan aside, the name of the channel, Japan Life Live. I originally started this with the idea that I would cover Japanese news in English, which I may still do to an extent, but I don't think that's really as interesting as I thought it was. You know, maybe the financial side people would find interesting, but I don't think just the day-to-day news here would be anything that people would be clamoring for. There are some neat stories. A lot of it is just human interest stories, though. And I always felt they were very charming in a way, but I don't know if that's something that is universal or if that's just me. But maybe in the future I'll put up a couple videos that are just English versions of Japanese news stories, and we'll see. Also, the second idea was to do basic live shows or like a YouTube live or things of that nature and talk about what it's like to be in Japan. Then I went on YouTube and I checked to see if anyone had done that before, and pretty much everyone had. I realized that I was last to the party on that. So I just started doing what I loved, which was, you know, talking about retro games. My mom had sent me a box and it had a whole bunch of my homework in it from when I was in like first grade, which I was surprised she kept, to be honest. And it was interesting to look through everything and to find a journal I kept from when I first learned how to write. And I was using it to practice writing, really. But I was basically doing reviews for games that I had rented. And I had a little system of, would I want to rent this again, or is this something that's worth asking for Christmas or a birthday or something like that? And I thought that was kind of cute, so I decided that I would do 1-minute reviews. I try to keep them all about a minute, maybe a minute, 15 seconds. And the first half would be the journal's entries and what I thought as a kid, and the last half would be what I think about the games today as an adult. And so far it's been fun. It's not breaking the internet or anything, but it's really fun that I have, kind of been putting those out. It's an interesting little journey, and I enjoy doing it. I am incredibly new to this, as I think anyone who sees my thumbnails would agree. But I enjoy the process, and I hope to get better, and I hope that I can entertain, or bring those kind of nostalgic feelings back. That was actually one of the best compliments I got. A friend of mine started watching the videos, and he's around the same age I was, or I am, sorry. And he had mentioned that it was something, "Sugoi natsukashi," which is, it's so nostalgic, and that's kind of what I was going for, And I'm not a very negative person normally, so it's fun to kind of, games that most people maybe didn't think of as the best are really high on my list sometimes, and some games that people loved I was kind of perplexed by. Mega Man 3 being one. I know a lot of people were surprised that wasn't like the best one on the Nintendo for me, but yeah, in my opinion, it's always been 2. I just think that's something I like an easier game, to be honest, normally, which is surprising that I love Sifu so much, because this is difficult. But I think a lifetime of martial arts kind of bleeds into this. When I was 4 years old, I started doing karate, and that gave me 2 huge loves: Japanese culture and martial arts. And those 2 things just really never left me. I have been doing martial arts from the age of 4 non-stop until, I practiced this morning, so it is something that is ingrained within me and is definitely part of my life. It's also something that got me into watching kung fu movies. As a teenager, kung fu movies were huge. They were just hitting their stride, and I was lucky enough to live in an area that had a fairly thriving Chinese-Japanese population. So not only was I able to find Japanese comic books, manga, and start to learn a little bit of the language, but I also knew a rental store that had all of the uncut kung fu movies, and a lot of them had, I want to say, subtitles. The translations were not great, but I got the gist and I enjoyed it, so it was better than nothing. And when the movies did finally start coming out with like English voices, it just never really spoke to me the same way as hearing the actual, Cantonese or Mandarin. So I really enjoyed it, and it's been something that stuck with me too today. I still love the kung fu movies, and even if they're cheesy and not as great as their heyday, I still watch a large amount of them to today. As for anime, anime started early for me. I was about, I want to say 11 years old when a Japanese boy and his mother moved in next door to me. He introduced me to Dragon Ball via the Super Nintendo game, or Super Famicom game. And after that, he said, there's a TV show. So we got together, started watching the TV show, and it blew me away. I absolutely loved it. And it was the first time I'd ever seen anything with a connecting story, much less something that was, just spoke to me on every level. I always wanted to gain strength, to be strong, to be the hero, and it's all martial arts, and it was everything I wanted. So I enjoyed it wholehearted. And it was, at the time, he was getting VHS tapes sent from Japan with Dragon Ball and Crayon Shin-chan. And his mom was getting some variety shows that we watched sometimes, and a couple dramas I wasn't interested in. But later in life, he ended up showing me a lot of other anime, and we, stayed friends to today. So it's interesting to see what has become of me as an anime fan. I really enjoy it. So I've seen a lot of stuff, and I'm always on the lookout for anything. So if you have any recommendations of any anime that you love, I am open for pretty much any genre. So drop it in the comments. But my little path moved forward from there. I still love anime, but there was a point where I got really into Japanese music. I was never a music fan when I was living in the West, and it just none of it really was for me. So when my friend showed me Japanese music, I started getting into that. And to age myself, the bands Glay, TM Revolution, Speed, Morning Musume, things like that I really enjoyed. And that just became another lifelong love. So my first time in Japan as a vacation was kind of the first time that I lived, or I shouldn't say lived, the first time I was in a place where everything I loved was readily available. And a lot of money later, I returned home with tons of CDs and games and things like that, and I realized, yeah, this is probably the place for me. Now, 14 years into living here, I still read a lot of manga, I still watch anime on TV, and I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing movies in the theaters, the anime movies in theaters and things like that. It's a lot of fun, and it's, I'm an older otaku, but it's still something that I absolutely love, and I think it'll be part of my life forever, as will Japanese music and culture in general. So that's kind of how I ended up here, and why I intend to stay. A little more about this game. It came out a couple years ago. It is called Sifu, and it's got a lot of homages to kung fu movies, and I think I believe this guy is from The Raid or something like that. It's just, the amount of influence is astounding. The voice acting is great. The music is perfection. The story is actually interesting. It's not just something they threw on at the last minute. This is very well thought out, and it's like I said, the difficulty is there, and once you master a certain level of difficulty, there are higher difficulty levels. This is the mid-range one, the normal mode, if you will. The hard mode is not fun for me. I tried it, and I could get to the third stage, and then it's just over. Where on easy, you can blow through the whole game without losing, an age. Which in this game, every time you are killed, you come back 1 year older. But highly recommend, and I will keep going through this playthrough through the whole story, and I will see you soon with part 2.